Hello everybody. It's a beautiful, fresh spring day. Fresh day, fresh start. But why is it creatively that so many of us, yes, and I'm looking at you, find it incredibly difficult to do that, to come up with new ideas, to push forward? Because it might be a nice fresh spring morning, but there's a really good chance that creatively we're going to be doing the same thing we did yesterday, the day before that, and the day before that. Time to move on. Now, all my most original friends are really, really good. They have this constant, restless creative energy. They're never happy with where they are. They're always trying to move forward. They get into this cycle of sort of reflecting on their work, saying, what can I improve? What can I change? What can I make different? And then they refresh their output. And this cycle just is ongoing. And it's what keeps them at the forefront of the industry. It's what keeps them relevant and fresh and all the rest of it. And I thought it'd be really cool if we built in that same cycle to a master's program so that the students didn't just learn while they were studying, but they kept on being able to learn, like pushing a ball down a hill. So they kept on turning and refreshing their output for the rest of their creative lives. That was thought number one. Thought number two, I've been having too many thoughts recently, is so far we've focused all our postgraduate courses on composing for film, television and games, sound design for games, things, in music business, things like this. But while our courses clearly work, our students are really happy, they're doing really well, why don't we open this up to the massive world of commercial music? You know, lots of you are songwriters, lots of you are remixers and EDM artists, you may do rock, you might write all kinds of different genres. And so that is why we've come up with this new master's program, Songwriting and Music Production. So there it is. Now, arguably, a course like this is only as good as the people who teach it. And I have to say, the men and women who are teaching this are really, really, really good. We're very, very proud to have Grammy Award winners, nominees, people who've got tens of millions of streams, people who've worked with, household name artists from right across the world and right across the professions within the music industry. Let me introduce you to a couple of them, starting with my friend Phil Larson. He's a producer, remixer, artist, won a Grammy working with Kylie, incredibly busy, doing all kinds of stuff. Let's catch up with him first. Hello, Phil, and welcome. Where are you speaking to us from today?
I am speaking to you from Sandwich in the UK.
Very good. And thank you very much indeed for joining the teaching team on this brand spanking new postgraduate course. Your life is made up of doing lots of different things, including sort of producing, being an artist, and remixing for people like Lady Gaga and Katy Perry. How is the remixing business going at the moment? Is there still a decent living to be made from it?
The remixing business always fluctuates. At the moment, there's plenty of work there from the labels. I think it would be fair to say that over the last few years, the sort of fees you can charge for remixes have reduced because there are more and more people who are prepared to do it for sort of at cost essentially or for free. But there are opportunities out there to remix, that's for sure.
But they're still beating a path to your door. So when an artist comes to you or the label comes to you, how much are you sort of trying to work around what the artist's own style is, and how much are you bringing your own style to the table?
Well, I think as from my point of view, a remix is always at its best when you take what the artist has has spent so much time developing and try and take it further. I've never been one to remix and just completely scrap everything and chop the vocal into oblivion. But there are times and places to do that. But generally speaking, I would try and use quite a lot of the original source material, and stay very true to the key for me is always to stay very true to the singer and the vocals and what the lyrics and the song are trying to convey. And if you can get that into a new package in the form of a remix, then so much the better.
Wow, there's a lot of thought goes into this, isn't it? It's not just a matter of being in charge of your technology.
Well, yes, I think, as I say, you can do. There are obviously places, particularly at the harder end of the spectrum. There are, of course, in the harder housey and techno world, or other sort of subgenres. There are places where you don't ever use the full vocal or things like that. But I think in terms of, if you want to usually get a mix or a remix that is used in the widest possible way. And my bigger remixes, the more successful ones, have invariably been the ones that almost use the whole song, basically. And
Right.
because that then also pleases the artist, and it means that the song essentially is, rather than just being heard in one section of radio, it might now be heard in dance radio. It's being heard on club dance floors where it otherwise wouldn't be played. And I think that's the key then. I mean, that is the purpose of the remix, to try and broaden the audience. It's not, it's not always just sort of to be done on a whim, essentially.
Sure. So, I mean, I've been asking about remix, but obviously you do loads of other things. You write and you produce and you go on the road and you tour and you're a member of the Studio Killers, and so you are a man with many strings. Oh no, secret.
Just recording or self-destruct.
But also you're wandering into the world of higher education, which, I mean, what are you looking forward to most out of teaching some of our students?
I think from what I've experienced so far, it's just great to be able to try and pass on some tips and tricks, really, and some of the things you've picked up along the way that seem quite obvious when you do them day to day, but actually are you can save people a lot of time by just pointing out some of the pitfalls you might encounter, and encouraging an approach that means that you're more likely to get a success with your music or your whatever it is you're doing in the music business.
A bit of honest feedback goes a long way.
Feedback, as well, I think we've all been on the receiving end of feedback, probably in all sorts of guises in our lives. But in the music business, feedback tends to be it can either be quite fluffy if it comes from family and friends, which is very nice but not always particularly helpful, or extremely harsh if it comes from industry people, because they really don't care. So you need to try and find the balance where you can be, as one might say in educational circles, a critical friend.
Exactly right. Very good. Well, Phil, we're greatly looking forward to having you. Thank you so much for coming along, and we're looking forward to get stuck in very soon.
Yeah, thank you. Can't wait.
Now let's cross over to the United States. If you are into heavy metal and rock, then the name Machine will probably ring lots of bells. He works with Clutch, Lamb of God, Boys Night Out, lots of really big top-end metal acts. Now, he's a producer, he's based in Austin, Texas, and he too is coming to join the ThinkSpace teaching team. Let's have a word with him. Machine, welcome to ThinkSpace Education. Thank you so much for coming along and sharing your knowledge with our forthcoming students. Now tell me, as a producer, is it a good thing if a producer has a sound of their own rather than just bringing out the sound of the band?
Oh, good question. I think it is a good thing for a producer to have a sound of their own. Actually, you could answer that both ways. Within your goal, your creative goal to bring out the sound of the band, there are inherent characteristics and themes, whether a given producer would like to try to admit he doesn't have it. I'm always being told, even though I do multiple genres of music, I'm still being told by people all the time that, oh, I have a sound and they can hear what I do. And I know this of other producers too that have said the same things. Multi-genre producers, they're like, yeah, people tell me I have a sound. I don't hear it as much as they do, but I think that's just what happens. Your DNA, when you work and dial things, your creative DNA gets into what you make. But that is not to be that is not to be associated as a sort of a template producer or too much of a method producer that's going to apply. That's not to be confused. That's going to apply methods towards producing or recording a band that may not be best for that given artist. You should always be able to try different methods out, whatever works best to capture what's great about the artist or what's going to sell their records, basically.
So how much of what you do is the technology and knowing how to use all these tools, and how much is it more thinking skills, more creative skills, and understanding the band and the ethos and trying to bring out the sound that goes with that particular artist? Yeah,
it's almost like you want to get to a place in life where you can really take the technical things for granted. I'm a guy that I've been on the same DAW, for example, Logic for decades now. Believe it or not, actually decades, because I like looking at my recording gear as, in a way, my instrument. That allows me to stay in the creative space, and think a lot. It's it's a tricky thing being this record producer, because it is a left and a right side brain together type of thing. There's there's a technical side and there's a creative side. So I know some engineers that are really, they love all the new gear. I as long as you're using good industry standard gear, there's nothing wrong with sticking with things that you know and that you're familiar with. So you go to autopilot, and I need to do that so I can stay in the great creative zone. And I don't know if the word is take it for granted, but that's what I say, is to take my gear for granted, right?
Absolutely. I completely know what you mean. Now, you're someone who's known for being very generous with your knowledge and experience. What do you think you're going to get from teaching on this postgraduate program?
Oh, what am I going to get? Well, it's funny. I've noticed in the last so many years that I've been asked to do certain seminars and things. I've noticed that when you have to actually teach something changes about how it is to the teacher going back to do their regular job. I've noticed this, wow, when you have to get to the point where you articulate it and you define it, it makes your process become a lot more flowing, even when you don't have a little audience in front of you. It just makes the whole thing better.
Exactly. I find when you have to explain something, you have to almost slow it right down so that you're able to analyze in much more detail what we do sometimes without even having to think about it. So when you go back into the studio, you're able maybe to do things differently or even better in some way. Yeah. And, maybe less, scattering and diverting, unnecessary. Machine, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for this whole pandemic thing to be over so that we can all come over to your studio in Austin and hang out and learn more about the whole production process and the way you work. Yeah, I have a great space. For this. It's a beautiful, beautiful barn studio. It's such a friendly environment for something like we're doing, And the other really neat thing about it, Guy, is that, it probably is not stereotypical studio setup. There's parts of it that are, but the parts of it that aren't are very intuitive to a young, at-home recording. Even though it's a big room, a lot of my methods are very much DIY minded. They're the way I do things. I do everything in one room. That's unusual. There's not a separate control room and live room. So there's these really smart methods that really apply to a new, young, modern DIY type of producer / engineer. It's good. It'll be good for that. Machine, thank you very much indeed. See you very soon. So those are just two of the people teaching the course, 2 out of dozens, I have to tell you. We've got loads and loads more. There's lots of information on the website. What we'd encourage you to do, if you think that this can help you with your musical journey, is just get in touch. drop us a line and we can start a conversation and see how we can be a part of your musical future. So we'll be meeting more of the people contributing to this course in the coming weeks. But for today, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.